Let's see. A wealthy family is sent to a world where water is almost non-existent to extract the best valued substance in the universe. So today on Cinema Recapped, I'll show you Dune.
The film begins with a young woman who lives on Dune. She says that a group of people called Harkonnen came there to steal a substance called the spice and become richer than the Emperor. However, these people left. Then we meet Paul, the son of a wealthy family on another planet called Caladan. He has lunch with his mother, named Jessica, who trains him in the use of a skill called the voice, which is used to control other people by giving them orders. She also asks him if he has continued to have strange dreams, but he denies it. Later, Paul studies about the desert planet Arrakis, also called Dune. Then we meet the head of the family, Duke Atreides, Paul's father. At his side are Halleck, his war chief, and Hawat, his advisor, who is also a mented, that is, a human being. His brain works as advanced as a computer. They and the rest of the Atreides receive an informant from the Emperor, who warns them that the Emperor demands that they leave that planet to go to rule in Dune. The Duke accepts the task, sealing the decree with his ring. Then we see Duncan arrive, the master of the sword of the Atreides house, who is also a good friend of Paul. He tells him that in one of his dreams he saw him die in Dune, but Duncan says he doesn't have to worry about a dream. Later, Paul tries to convince his father to let him travel with Duncan to Dune, but his father replies that he must travel with the rest of the family, and that if Duncan must travel sooner, it is due to a special mission in which he'll establish friendship with a race of men in Dune called Freemen. Then, Paul must continue his training with Halleck, for which he activates a shield that is carried flush with the skin, although we realize that there are weapons that can pass through this shield. Halleck warns him that the race that ruled before them, the Harkonnen, will not be very happy about the changes, and then we see the Harkonnen, led by a man named Vladimir, his nephew Rabin who is furious, and a mentat named Piter. The leader calmly says that they shouldn't worry about the Emperor's decision. Returning to Paul, his mother wakes him up one night, so he can meet an old teacher of her, who is interested in his strange dreams. His doctor, named Hewitt, checks his vital signs, and then Paul is taken to the teacher, who gives him a test in which he must put a hand in a box, and if he takes it out, she will kill him with an instant poison. His hand starts to hurt a lot, but then he remembers a lesson from his mother, that if he allows himself to be carried away by the fear caused by the pain, then he would be like an animal being carried away by its instincts. So Paul endures the pain firmly until the teacher says that is enough. The teacher and mother discuss the possibility of Paul being some kind of chosen one, given that he has been having prophetic dreams, although the teacher says it is too early to be sure. Shortly afterwards we see the Atreides moving to Dune, where the locals welcome Paul, as if he were their savior, since they notice in him signs of a legendary figure according to their culture. Then the Atreides travel in vehicles called ornithopters to their new home, where Mrs. Jessica receives servants from the untamed freeman race. One of them gives her a weapon called Cries, which is very valuable in their culture, and gives it to her for being the mother of the chosen one. Later, Paul continues his lessons on Dune, when he suddenly sees a mosquito-sized weapon, which is being remotely controlled. Paul stands still so that the weapon does not detect him, and when the maid opens the door, the gun is directed at her, but Paul saves her life, and the Duke gets mad at his guards for having allowed his son to fall into such danger. Meanwhile, Vladimir lies to the old woman from before, to whom he promises that although he plans to kill the Duke, he will let Jessica and Paul live, when in fact he plans to exterminate them all. The Atreides have their first meeting, during which Hawat warns them that the Harkonnen left them a very deficient equipment for the extraction of the spice. Then we see the return of Duncan, who gives a full report on the Freemen, admitting that they could be a very effective army as allies. At that moment a Freeman appears, which spits on the table, but because that is a sign of respect. He says that he does not want any envoy from the Emperor to come to their land, steal their resources and attack his people, as the Harkonnen used to do. The Duke says that as ruler he will go anywhere that is necessary for his interests, but he promises that Freeman people will not be harmed. Then, they meet with a planetologist named Kynes, who helps them fit into suits that help recycle all the water that comes out of their body. Together they travel to see how the spice is extracted. The planetologist explains to them that the greatest danger during this extraction are giant worms, which are attracted by the movement on the sand. The Duke attacks one of these worms, so they warn the extractors to leave. However, the vehicle that was to take the extractor machine fails, making it impossible to save the spice or the people. The Duke orders all his vehicles to go to save at least people. However, during the operation Paul gets off the omnithopter, and he gets dizzy when he touches the sand, so he is almost eaten by the gigantic worm, although they help him to escape in time. Later, he explains to his mother that when he touched the sand, he had a vision in which he was kissing a Freeman, but then she stabbed him. He also tells her that he knows she is pregnant, although her mother doesn't know how he knew, since she hadn't told anyone. Meanwhile, we see that the Harkonnen army appears to be preparing for battle. Jessica promises the Duke that she will protect Paul with her own life if necessary, and that night we see Dr. Yu betray the Atreides, deactivating the city's shields, and then anesthetizing the Duke. The War Master does his job, raising the men against the approaching Harkonnen attack, although they destroyed their ships before they can mount them. However, Halak leads his men on foot, while the royal family's residence is also invaded by the enemy, easily killing off the internal guards. Meanwhile, Master Yue explains that he betrayed them because the Harkonnen took his wife, and that he will take revenge on them by putting a deadly poison on a false tooth, which the Duke must bite in front of the Harkonnen leader to kill him. We see that Rabban accepts no prisoners, while Duncan kills many Harkonnen soldiers, although he cannot find Paul in his room. He and his mother were kidnapped by Harkonnen soldiers, covering Jessica's mouth, so that she does not use the voice, while Duncan kills more enemies, and manages to get an omnithopter and escape. Meanwhile, Paul tries to use the voice to control the Harkonnen soldiers, although it does not work, but then it does work, causing them to kill each other, while he and his mother escape going down to the desert, taking a backpack that apparently someone left there for them. When they get off the omnithopter, they see the destruction caused by the Harkonnen, and then they set up a tent to hide in the desert. Meanwhile, Dr. Yue asks his wife to be released as promised, but Vladimir only kills him. The Duke then releases the poison, killing everyone in the room, including himself. His family becomes aware of his death due to Dr. Yue, sending them the Dussel ring inside the backpack. Duncan confronts the planetologist, who knew that the Emperor had sent them there to die, while we see that the leader Harkonnen managed to survive the poison, thanks to his suspenders with which he flew to the ceiling. Then, since Paul touched the sand again, he has more visions, such as one of a battle he is a part of, having blue eyes like Freeman. In another one he sees his name being shouted after having taken revenge, and he accuses his mother of having turned him into a monster with prophetic visions, although later he lets himself be consoled by her. When they leave their hiding place they see Duncan, who after the death of the previous Duke, offers his loyalty to Paul. He reunites them with the planetologist, explaining that the Emperor also involved his armies during the attack to support the Harkonnen. Paul says that with what happened the other noble houses could unite against the Empire before the same happens to them, although that would create chaos that would make things worse. Paul says they could turn Dune into a paradise, that he has seen it, although the planetologist says that those are just legends. Later, we see how the Harkonnen arrive at that new hideout, where Duncan sacrifices himself so that the others can escape. The planetologist says that there is only one omnithopter for 2 people, telling them that they will escape in it by hiding in a sandstorm, while she will escape on foot, since she is more used to the desert. So, the planetologist plants a device to get the attention of a worm, but then she gets stabbed in the back. However, she sacrifices herself by having the worm eater and her attackers. Meanwhile, Paul and his mother get into the sandstorm to get rid of their pursuers, while Paul has another vision in which the Freeman who spat on the table earlier explains that he must let himself flow over time, for what Paul decides to be carried away by the storm in order to survive it. Vladimir orders his nephew Rabban to rule Dune and start extracting the spice again, and that he should also kill all the Freemen. We see that Paul and his mother manage to survive the sandstorm, although they land in a forced way, losing the vehicle, so they must run towards some rocks before a worm finds them. Then, they put on the suits that recycle the water, and go in search of the Freemen. We see that they have to walk in a special way to fool the worms, although one of them finds them anyway, so they must run again towards some rocks. They manage to arrive at the very last moment, and Paul sees the gigantic creature face to face. Then someone else places a device nearby to get the worms' attention, giving them a chance to get deeper into the rocks. But they cannot rest, since at that moment they run into a group of Freemans, who want to kill them to steal the water from their bodies. However, one of them recognizes Paul, saying that he may be the chosen one, and therefore they should not kill him, although the mother can be killed, so they start fighting. The leading Freeman, named Stilgar, is surprised by Jessica's fighting ability, who spares the life of one Freeman, so everyone calm down. Meanwhile, Paul meets the young Freeman he has been seeing in his visions, and then mother and son surrender their weapons, so that they can be welcomed among the Freemen. However, one of them says that he does not accept the decision to let the woman live, so he demands to carry out a duel for her life, which Paul will carry out on behalf of his mother. Later, Paul has a vision in which he loses the duel and dies. Then, the Freeman girl tells him that she does not believe that he is the chosen one, although she still wants him to die with dignity, so she lends him her cries for the battle. Paul begins losing, but then manages to take advantage, although he does not want to kill his enemy, for which he gets angry, since according to his culture, in these duels you can only win or die. Jessica says that her son has never killed anyone, and being left without options, Paul decides to end the life of his enemy, after which the other Freemen take the body of his deceased partner, while touching Paul's shoulder as a sign of approval. Stilgar confirms that Paul can be part of them now, and although Jessica tries to refuse saying that they must return to their previous planet, Paul says that he has realized that his destiny is linked to Dune. We see that from that moment mother and son begin to travel alongside the Freemen, realizing that they can even travel on top of the worms. Paul is happy to literally travel with the girl of his dreams, although behind his back we see that his mother is not very happy with the decision he made. The end.
If you liked the video, please Please leave a like and subscribe to continue receiving the recaps of the best sci-fi movies. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.